Welcome back to K-Drama Cycle, the channel where we dive into the real stories behind Asia's most talked about stars. Today's story is about resilience, redemption, and the power of love in the spotlight. This is the journey of Yu and Tian Xuning, two names that once dominated the stage, lost everything, and have now returned stronger than ever. Their comeback isn't just a performance, it's a statement, a healing moment, and a reminder that true talent never fades. It all began years ago when Yu and Tian Xuning first met on a reality performance show that brought together rising young artists. Their chemistry was undeniable, not just in the way they performed, but in the way they looked at each other. Every rehearsal, every duet, every shared glance told a story that fans quickly fell in love with. They weren't just partners on stage, they became a symbol of artistic harmony, where emotion met discipline and passion found purpose. At the height of their fame, everything seemed perfect. They had just released a joint project that topped the charts, performed in front of sold-out arenas, and even landed endorsement deals together. But behind the scenes, pressure was building. Rumors started swirling about creative disagreements, romantic tension, and industry jealousy. When a misunderstanding turned into a full-blown scandal, the once unstoppable duo found themselves at the center of controversy they never asked for. Yu was accused of breaking contractual agreements. Tian Xuning was blamed for distancing herself. Both were painted as villains in a story written by others. The media went wild, fans were divided, and in the chaos, both stars disappeared from the spotlight. For nearly 2 years, their names faded, replaced by newer, louder voices in the entertainment industry. People whispered that their careers were over. But the truth was far deeper. During that silence, Yu retreated into reflection, focusing on songwriting and choreography. He spent countless nights in small studios, writing pieces inspired by loss and forgiveness. Tian Xuning, meanwhile, sought peace away from the noise. She returned to her hometown, caring for her family and studying classical dance, rediscovering the very art that made her fall in love with performing in the first place. They weren't running away, they were healing. Then, one quiet evening, Tian Xuning posted a simple photo on social media, her shoes next to a stage door, captioned, "It's time." Fans immediately sensed something was coming. Within hours, Yu reposted the same image, writing, "Let's begin again." The internet erupted. After years of silence, they were coming back, together. When the night of their comeback performance finally arrived, the atmosphere was electric. Fans waited in long lines, some holding banners from their early years, others crying before the show even began. As the lights dimmed and the first chords played, the audience went silent. Yu stepped forward first, his voice calm but full of emotion. Then Tian Xuning appeared, her movements graceful, her expression steady but emotional. It wasn't just a show, it was their story unfolding through music and dance. Every lyric seemed to reflect their past, the heartbreak, the misunderstanding, and the longing to start over. Halfway through the performance, Yu's voice cracked slightly, and Tian Xuning reached out, taking his hand as they continued. That single gesture spoke louder than words. It wasn't scripted, it was real. The crowd cheered through tears, and for a few minutes, everyone in that room understood that art isn't about perfection. It's about truth. After the performance, social media exploded. Clips from the night went viral. Yu and Tian Xuning are back. Forgiveness never looked this beautiful. Even critics who once doubted them praised the rawness and maturity in their work. Their comeback was no longer just entertainment, it was a cultural moment. In interviews following the show, Yu spoke softly about what the years away had taught him. He said, "Sometimes silence is necessary. You learn who you are when no one's watching." Tian Xuning added, "We were hurt, yes. But art is born from pain. What matters is how you transform it." Their humility, honesty, and quiet confidence resonated deeply with fans. Brands began calling again, producers reached out, and soon, they were invited to headline a major cultural festival. But this time, things were different. They no longer chased fame, they embraced purpose. Their goal wasn't to prove the haters wrong, but to honor the people who never stopped believing in them. Their second act also brought unexpected changes. They founded a foundation to support young performers struggling with mental health and career burnout. Ziyu began mentoring trainees, while Tian Xuning started teaching modern and traditional dance to aspiring students. They turned their pain into something powerful, giving others the strength to keep going when life feels unbearable. Fans started calling them the Phoenix Duo, rising again from ashes of their past. And fittingly, their next performance was titled Rebirth. It combined live orchestra, modern choreography, and cinematic visuals that showcased their full journey. The final act ended with them standing in silence, facing each other under a single spotlight, as the audience erupted into applause that lasted several minutes. It was a moment of peace, closure, and triumph. In the weeks that followed, they became global sensations again, but this time, they handled fame differently. No lavish parties, no controversies, just art, gratitude, and authenticity. When asked what kept them together through all the storms, Ziyu simply said, "We understood each other even in silence." And Tian Xuning smiled, replying, "That's what true partnership means." The industry has seen many comebacks, but few as powerful and sincere as theirs. It reminded everyone, from young dreamers to seasoned performers, that setbacks don't end your story. They shape it. What matters most isn't how many times you fall, but how courageously you rise again. Their comeback changed everything, not just for them, but for everyone who ever felt forgotten, doubted, or broken. Ziyu and Tian Xuning proved that time away doesn't erase talent, and that real love for one's craft always finds its way back to the stage. As they continue their journey, one thing is clear, their story is far from over. Because sometimes the most powerful performances don't happen under bright lights, but in the quiet moments of healing before the return. And when they finally step back into the spotlight, they remind the world that true stars don't fade, they transform. This was K-Drama Cycle. Thank you for watching. If you were moved by Ziyu and Tian Xuning's story, don't forget to like, comment, and share this video. Because every comeback deserves to be celebrated. After their unforgettable comeback performance, Ziyu and Tian Xuning's story didn't just end with applause. It was only the beginning of a new chapter that neither of them had seen coming. The morning after their performance, media outlets across Asia ran headlines calling their reunion the rebirth of sincerity in show business. Clips of their emotional handhold on stage trended on every social platform. It wasn't about fame anymore. It was about feeling. Audiences had been craving authenticity, and Ziyu and Tian Xuning delivered exactly that. But behind the renewed attention came new challenges. While many welcomed them back with open arms, others questioned whether their comeback could last. Some industry insiders doubted they could sustain the momentum. Others whispered about whether their connection was purely artistic or something deeper. In a candid moment during an interview, Ziyu smiled and said softly, "People will always speculate. What matters is that we understand each other, beyond words, beyond labels." Tian Xuning nodded beside him, her expression calm but filled with warmth. Some things don't need to be explained. They're just felt. The simplicity of their words became one of the most quoted lines on social media that week. As the days turned into weeks, offers began flooding in. Music producers wanted collaborations. Film directors offered them leading roles in emotionally driven dramas. Fashion brands requested them as campaign ambassadors for resilience and elegance. But Ziyu and Tian Xuning turned down most offers. They weren't ready to rush into the chaos again. Instead, they took time to rebuild their art on their own terms. Ziyu began producing new music, blending traditional Chinese sounds with modern beats. Tian Xuning started choreographing routines that told stories of emotional recovery and transformation. When they finally announced a joint project titled Echoes of the Heart, fans erupted in excitement. The project wasn't a typical concert. It was a theatrical fusion, combining live performance, poetry, and visual storytelling. They poured their souls into every detail, from costume design to lighting, from the message of every song to the symbolism of every movement. It was about reliving pain, forgiveness, and rediscovering one's inner light. On opening night, the audience filled every seat. Even international fans flew in to witness what many described as the performance that defines this generation. When the curtain rose, a hush fell over the theater. The first scene opened with Tian Xuning dancing alone under a soft white spotlight, barefoot, vulnerable, free. Then, as the music swelled, ZU's voice entered, raw, emotional, echoing through the space like a whisper from the past. It wasn't just a show, it was confession turned into art. When they performed their duet, the chemistry was undeniable. It wasn't the youthful charm they once had. It was something deeper, matured by time and pain. Fans in the audience wept openly, some saying they could feel the sincerity in every word, every step. After the performance, critics called Echoes of the Heart a masterpiece of emotional storytelling. The media praised them for redefining what performance art could be in the modern age. What started as a comeback had now turned into a movement, a reminder that vulnerability is not weakness and that broken hearts can still create beauty. In the months that followed, they toured across Asia, from Seoul to Tokyo, from Beijing to Singapore. Each stop was more emotional than the last. They met fans who shared personal stories of how their journey inspired them to keep going. A young girl once handed Tian Xuning a letter that read, "When I saw you rise again, I decided to live again too." It was in that moment Tian Xuning realized their art wasn't just healing themselves anymore. It was healing others. ZU, who had always been quiet about his emotions, started opening up more in interviews. He revealed how depression nearly ended his career, how isolation had made him question everything. He admitted that Tian Xuning's support was what kept him grounded. "She believed in me when I didn't believe in myself," he said softly. "And when she fell apart, I reminded her of who she was. That's what partnership means." Those words sent fans into tears. It wasn't romantic gossip. It was a story of human connection, trust, and survival. Soon, even mainstream news outlets were calling their comeback the most genuine and moving journey in modern entertainment. Their growing success eventually caught the attention of international producers. A European production company invited them to collaborate on a stage film, a cinematic retelling of their story, blending documentary realism with artistic performance. They agreed, hoping it could inspire artists worldwide to stay true to their craft no matter how dark the path becomes. Filming the project brought back memories of pain, of fear, of moments they had buried deep. There were days when Tian Xuning cried during rehearsals, reliving the heartbreak of being misunderstood. Ziyu would sit quietly beside her, offering silent support. And when he struggled with his lines, she would stay up late helping him rehearse, reminding him why they started in the first place. The result was breathtaking. When the film premiered at an international arts festival, it received a standing ovation that lasted 10 minutes. Critics called it the purest display of emotion ever captured between two artists who refused to break. From then on, their names weren't just tied to one country, they became global ambassadors of resilience and artistry. Even so, ZU and Tian Xuning kept their private lives grounded. They refused to chase fame or trend-driven exposure. They avoided gossip shows and rarely appeared on variety programs. Instead, they poured their energy into mentoring others, guiding young performers on how to handle fame without losing themselves. Over time, fans began to see something deeper in their connection, a quiet love built not on showbiz glamour but on mutual understanding. Though neither confirmed any romantic involvement, their gestures spoke volumes. A lingering look, a shared smile, a gentle touch on stage. It was enough for fans to believe that what they had was rare, something deeper than words. By the end of the year, ZU and Tian Xuning had not only reclaimed their place, they had redefined it. They were no longer just performers, they had become storytellers, healers, and symbols of endurance. They showed the world that art isn't about perfection, it's about truth, emotion, and the courage to begin again. Their comeback had truly changed everything, not just their careers, but the way people saw the power of art itself. And as their final tour ended under the glow of 1,000 stage lights, ZU turned to Tian Xuning and whispered, "We did it." She smiled through tears and replied, "We never really left. We just had to find our way back." And as they bowed to a roaring crowd that had waited years to see them again, one thing became clear. Some comebacks aren't just about fame. They're about rebirth. They're about reminding the world that no matter how hard life knocks you down, there is always a stage waiting for those brave enough to rise again.